Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis, in this series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is about this part of the Overseer Mandate Trustee's job, and you should see a picture of a person standing on a pile of bodies. I'm grateful to Carmen Stanley, producer and director, Mo Jackson, audio and prompter, and Mark Wesley, floor director. Some people have been complaining that I'm too long-winded, so let me tell it like it is, short and sweet, as I just tweeted yesterday. And I said, "You're not thinking straight. We own everything. They have nothing. They can't implement anymore. Stay tuned." And the person who had tweeted was called Ether's Voice, and Ether's Voice said, "I know. So while everything is on pause, the cartel still rules the World Bank unfettered, unrestrained, unrestricted, and free." And I said to Ether's Voice that is all disinfo. And so Ether's Voice tweeted back, "So Karen, who exactly is interim president of the new Republic of the United States of America?" That letter was signed. And so I wrote back, I tweeted, "We are in interregnum, not Knights of Malta military rule." And I put a link in the teleprompter that showed a DC TV show which we did last year on the military, and YouTube had refused to upload it, so I simply uploaded it on archive.org, and I've given you some links in the teleprompter that you can find. What I said is that YouTube is owned by Google, and Google was created by the CIA, and I also have some links in there, and I've shown some of the nasty tricks that the CIA likes to pull on mind control and the patents for them. I've been explaining in this series about the network of global corporate control, and that I am something called the Overseer Mandate Trustee. The 188 Ministers of Finance and Development on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund appointed me as Overseer Mandate Trustee, and in the teleprompter you can find the link which will show you how I learned from an email that I was appointed as the Overseer Mandate Trustee. And we usually upload these segments, and so you'll be able to see the teleprompter. I also tweet the teleprompter before these segments, and you might be able to follow some of the links there as well. And I have been telling people that the 188 ministers of finance who are on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF are the ones that are responsible for the world's wealth, which is in a trust called the Global Debt Facility. And the assets in this trust, I've given you an itemized list of them, and I've tried to inventory them, but of course I need to be able to go to where some of these assets are actually, many of them are buried in the Philippines, and there the military has cordoned off that area, and they haven't been letting me have access. And this is going to change, because they are simply trustees, and either they're going to abide by the rules at the World Bank, or we're going to be in World War III. And the likelihood is that they will abide by these rules. The reason I know about that is because of something that's called a power transition model, which came to the World Bank from the National War College. And I'm waiting now. I'm lucky this week we have the teleprompter, so I'm waiting for the teleprompter to scroll up a little bit, and I'll read you from that. We're talking about the world's wealth. And then I'm going to skip the part which I was just telling you about how the U.S. military is supposed to be guarding the areas in the Philippines. And I had learned about some of this because there were helicopters that were crashing because of the gold, which is so very heavy. And many of our earlier segments in this DC TV series have talked about country debt, including for Greece and Puerto Rico. Country debt is a big scam. The world's wealth includes over $2 quadrillion in Treaty of Versailles bonds, and there is actually no more country debt because the Treaty of Versailles bonds which were issued by the United States Federal Reserve in the 1930s, offset, that is, they cancel country debt. Now let's talk about Wolfgang Struck. One of the corpses in that stack includes Wolfgang Struck's, and I don't mean real corpses. What I mean is that I've exposed Wolfgang and some of the other bodies in that stack as agents of the network of global corporate control who are just simply lying. You might remember that on December 10th, 2014, Wolfgang Struck asked me to approve the sale back to the Federal Reserve Bank of the Treaty of Versailles bonds, and I refused to do this. This gives you an indication that the Fed has to repay these bonds or they would not have tried to buy them back. So, what did I do to Wolfgang Struck and why? I had posted a full set of comments about President Duterte from an article in Russia Today. My tweet included recent emails from me to Wolfgang showing that Wolfgang was not agreeing to the terms of the global currency reset that were approved by the Board of Governors. That is, one of the conditions that the Board of Governors has is that they are going to authenticate, that is, vouch for the signature authority of the signatories in the global debt facility on a transaction-by-transaction basis. This is to preserve the role of the Board of Governors and also the people who appoint them in cleaning up corruption. Wolfgang had included in his email to me earlier some important information about the role of the current president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, who is standing up to the Americans that are occupying the Philippines and fighting the drug trade in the Philippines. Drug trade is one of the ways that the CIA uses to fund the black budget of the United States. Another way is human trafficking. Wolfgang reminded everyone how the United States military is guarding the international monetary gold reserves contained in the global debt facility, and how the CIA overthrew Ferdinand Marcos in the EDSA demonstrations. And Ferdinand Marcos was the lawyer who set up the global debt facility. How did I respond to Wolfgang's criticism? Yesterday, I prepared for today's segment by trying to make that heap of corpses, that is, the agents of the network of global corporate control that I was exposing, as high as I could. And so I've put a link into Sunday's tweet. Let's be very, very clear. Generations and thousands of valiant Filipinos have lost their lives fighting the United States occupation of the Philippines. We're not talking about the right of the people in the Philippines to govern themselves without colonial occupation. What we are talking about right now is the right of people in every single country to be free of country debt. We're also talking about whether there's going to be World War III or whether there is a global currency reset which will give people all over the world the chance to end the secret domination of the network of global corporate control. We're actually following the recipe in the power transition model that came to the World Bank from the U.S. National War College in 2004, and which has a 90 to 95% degree of accuracy. One of the people that wrote me said that wasn't accurate enough. Well, I'm sorry. It's good enough. The power transition model is one indicator that we're going to have a successful global currency reset. I'm including in the teleprompter the links to this model, along with 2 TED shows which explain the model. One of the TED shows is from Jacek Kugler, who's the political scientist who came to the World Bank. Let's talk about the power transition model so that we understand what is going on between the Philippines, Vietnam, and other ASEAN countries, including China. The network of global corporate control has been desperately trying to distract us and land us in World War III. We are not going there. China is going to have to wait its turn before it becomes a superpower, according to the power transition model. The United States and its allies, including Germany, including Japan, are members of a coalition for the rule of law. So are the 134 countries that are members of the G77. The people listening to this segment and who will later write into the comment section when I upload it on YouTube, they are also members of this coalition for the rule of law. All of the people that understand the cover-up of corruption and that the network of global corporate control has bought up the mainstream media to bamboozle everyone, these are part of this coalition for the rule of law. As I've said earlier, we are on a one-way street to the global currency reset. So what is really going on is that China is trying to steal the world's monetary gold reserves instead of using this gold to take down the network of global corporate control in a global currency reset. And there's a link in the teleprompter which shows you what the South China Sea dispute is really about. It's got a letter that was written by China's ambassador. The dispute in the South China Sea is about the global debt facility and a pretender, ASM, who's trying to steal the world's gold. And it's also about the Coalition for Rule of Law on the Board of Governors. Yesterday, a man named Richard sent me an email. "Hello, Karen. I've been following you and your fight for over a year now, and let me first say how thankful I, along with my daughters, am. I'm totally aware of how the media, who used to be the people's champion, no longer serve us and obfuscate, mislead, and outright lie to us on a daily basis nowadays, and don't expect to hear anything about any of this through them. But isn't there anyone else, someone well known with some kind of long-standing credibility or reputation to match yours, that would be willing to speak out on this matter with you so as to give those of us that support and follow you some sort of reassurance that this, to put it bluntly, isn't all just some sort of disinformation or means to mislead us? It's just that I can't seem to find anywhere any sort of corroboration, and would very much like to see that, along with something that lets us know that something is actually happening to fix all the damage that's been done. I'm behind you totally and mean you no disrespect, Karen, and will continue to be to the end of all this. I hope you understand where I'm coming from in this matter. I also wanted to say that I'm worried about the 90 to 95% accuracy of the transition model. I feel that giving these guys 5 to 10% room to wriggle out of this with all of their power, experience, and influence is more than enough room for them to do so. I pray that this isn't the case. Anyway, thank you again for all that you're doing, Karen, and know that you have many behind you supporting you, however we can. You're a brave woman. Keep fighting the good fight." So yesterday, I reminded Richard that David Tong, the chairperson of Singapore's International Trade Council, had said the following, and this was an email that he sent me in June. "Hi, Ms. Hudis. I'm captivated listening to you on YouTube concerning the global debt facility. You're completely selfless and are working in the interest of mankind. It appears to me that many people may not like what you're doing, and these people are very powerful. I will continue to watch your work. With our best wishes and kindly take care. Best regards, David Tong, Chairperson, International Trade Council, Singapore." Singapore is where the gold in the global debt facility was melted down and re-stamped at the end of World War II, and it's stamped with the initials TVM-LSM 666, which is another name for the global debt facility. I also reminded Richard of the track record of the power transition model and that it had built up a significant record by outperforming all the other security analysis. And you can read this from PS Online, a March 20 edition. in an article entitled "A Glass Half Full, No, but Perhaps a Glass Filling, the Contribution of International Politics Research to Policy." And this article was written by Randolph M. Silverson of the University of California at Davis. And what he wrote in this article: how does the model fare? Quite well, in fact. To return to Fetter's account, he noted the model was used to analyze scores of policy issues in over 30 countries. It was actually 275 policy issues. He reports the model's rate of accuracy was about 90%, and when the forecasts of the model and CIA analysts differed, the model's forecast was correct in every case. And I have included in the heaps of corpses that I've exposed as agents of the network of global corporate control, the CIA. I'm standing on those piles of corpses as overseer mandate trustee. I already defused Mossad's trap to blame the Jews in Israel as scapegoats for everything. They're doing this for divide and conquer. That's their favorite trick. And the way I defused this trick was I disclosed that Barry Kamish died suddenly on the very same day that Mossad learned how Barry Kamish was exposing the fact that Shimon Peres obtained nukes for Israel by trading 4,500 Yemeni babies to the United States to use as guinea pigs. He did this in the 1950s. And these children were used in experiments to show how human beings are harmed by radiation. They died ghastly deaths. Once people are aware that the network of global corporate control are trying to divide and conquer us by using these tricks, the tricks lose some of their power. And I've also got a video about J.S. Kim linked in the teleprompter. This was an interview that J.S. Kim did of me, and I've got some correspondence with J.S. Kim now, ongoing. We're exchanging emails every day about what gold traders have to say about paper currency and whether there's going to be permanent gold backwardation. If we have some time at the end of this segment, I'll tell you what some of the things are that J.S. Kim has been saying. I also exposed Catherine Austin Fitts as an agent of the network of global corporate control. Although she does expose certain things, also about black budgets, there's something called controlled opposition, and that is what Catherine Austin Fitts is. The network of global corporate control tried to change the subject and talk about the UN and UN troops in the United States after I had attacked Catherine Austin Fitts. They were trying to distract you. Well, we know that the UN troops are in the United States, and we have already told them that they have no business here and they are to clear out. Anyone that gave them permission was not speaking on behalf of the U.S. citizens. Does the UN have to listen to us? If we keep our focus, if we do not fall into the divide and conquer trap, then they will listen to us. Just wait and see. We also know that the UN has no role in the global debt facility. It's the job of the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF to administer the global debt facility. You can see this in the Bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. So, we are simply maintaining our focus. That is how we're going to take down the network of global corporate control, and some people call this the one bank. Last week, I documented how the legal profession forgot to tell Americans that the United States Congress has been declaring a state of emergency and suspending the Constitution every year. The fact that mainstream media does not run my story doesn't surprise anybody now. I keep on revealing very damaging emails, including emails to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I keep on exposing that many of these culprits are nothing more than corrupt agents of the network of global corporate control. That is why the pile of corpses that the Overseer Mandate Trustee is standing on is piled so high. The Director General of the International Bureau of the Universal Postal Union, Bishar Hussain, and the U.S. Postmaster General of the United States, Megan Brennan, are all toast now. People are starting to get the gist after hearing so many times about the statute of limitations. And there should be a picture now of a testimony about Jefferson's slaves and a skeleton. Richard had asked me for some sort of reassurance, and I've been saving this for next to last. You may remember how we've been talking about the way the Jesuits have tried to mix us up by falsifying our history. Professor Fomenko of the Moscow State University and his other colleagues have shown how ancient Greek history actually occurred in the Middle Ages, and the way he did this is extremely clever. You should read his books to see how he's done this. And he's also shown how some dynasties were put in different periods of time. We gave links to Professor Fomenko's Chronologia. This is his website in English. Well, Professor Fomenko's website was taken down for 5 days, but it was put right back up after we complained. This is one way of showing you that there's a critical mass of people that are actually following the corruption that we're exposing. And just so people don't get the misimpression that all of what I've been doing and telling you is something that was very easy because I'm also an agent. Well, I am not an agent, and I have been attacked, and I have been threatened, and I've put in the teleprompter some of these threats. People learned of the scalar-directed weapon attacks against me on January 8th and on August 5th. On the 30th of December in 2015, a henchman delivered a very unpleasant message to me from General Joseph Dunford Jr., and I told that stooge that I was not intimidated and that I was loyal to my job as Overseer Mandate Trustee, and that General Dunford Jr. was not in command of the civilian government because the United States is in interregnum. And now let me give you a story, an extemporaneous story, about the earliest threat that I had. You can see that in the teleprompter. That was one that I received in 2009. I had gotten contacted in 2009 by a young man. I had actually known him in his early teens because he was visiting me every weekend. His father was divorced, and I had a very serious relationship with his father. And so when this young man contacted me, he certainly got my attention. And I believe that that is one of the ways that the CIA likes to contact people. They like to find people that are in their employ who have a close relationship to the ones that are supposed to be intimidated. And I found out that his name is Scott Browning, and I found out that Scott had been working for the CIA. And anyway, so he contacted me, and you can see in the emails that we sent to each other, this was in 2009, he said that I needed to do what was best for me and my family. I thought that was pretty nervy. I wasn't mentioning my family. I knew he worked for the CIA. I didn't think the CIA had any business telling me that I should do what was best for my family. I took that as a threat, and I'm exposing this threat. There was another threat that I received. This was on the eve of the annual meetings that I went to in Lima, Peru. And this was a very, you can read in the teleprompter, this was a very explicit threat. It told me that the Vatican was going to off me if I went to Peru. Well, you see, people, I did go to Peru, and I also succeeded in going into the annual meetings, and I met face to face with a couple of foreign ministers, and I met with actually 20 delegations. I was in the annual meetings for about 6 hours, and the fact that I was able to remain in the annual meetings, that shows you that the Board of Governors understood who I was and that I was simply working for them. And when I was rehired by the Board of Executive Directors, don't forget that the World Bank has a two-tier layer of governance. There are 25 executive directors. 8 of those executive directors are employed directly by the largest economies. And then the rest of the executive directors are in something called constituencies. And I have been communicating with these executive directors. I know some of them personally. You can see in the teleprompter one of the emails that I sent to the executive director who was representing Portugal, I believe it was. But anyway, so what I agreed with the Board of Governors then was that I was going to speak on behalf of the Board of Governors. I was going to be very careful to clear things in advance with them. And then if I were to say anything that the Board of Governors didn't agree with on their behalf, they would have to go on record in writing, contradicting that. And you can also see in one of the emails that I sent, I frequently copy the embassies. I have taken advice when I was living in Japan. One of the people that I was meeting with face to face, a very high-level official, didn't like the fact that I was using emails. He said, no, in certain cases I needed to send things directly by mail. And you can see that there's one communication which I sent by priority mail to 188 embassies. And this was when I had put a lien in against the Federal Reserve. So I'm now complaining to the U.S. Post Office because I had sent something priority mail to the Japanese embassy. This is after asking one of my colleagues who I'm in touch with to go back to that senior official in Japan, because now that Emperor Akihito has said that he's abdicating, and the reason he's doing that is because he does not want the U.S. military to surrender unilaterally, which is what is going to happen if a Federal Reserve note crashes. So now the challenge that's in front of me, and that Richard was asking me how I'm actually going to do this, the challenge is how am I going to come up with Treasury dollars to exchange for Federal Reserve notes? And how are we going to get this accomplished in the time frame? I'm on the spot. And what I have done is I have put the elites on the spot, because I obviously can't do it unless they help me. Well, I'm now being given the signal that our time is up. So I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's segment is about the way that the Coalition for the Rule of Law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, together with the people living in these nations, have been trying to overcome each of the obstacles and agents that have tried to interfere with a global currency reset. Rest assured that I am getting a lot of help, or we would never have made it this far. I believe that we have reached critical mass and the point of no return. If you think we shall overcome, you are very right indeed.